Yeah, so this story is one that just really piqued my interest this week because it's about, Japanese development studios and publishers, and you don't often hear about this kind of stuff because not only is it rare to happen, but also just people don't talk about it. So, what am I talking about? The legendary Yuji Naka, formerly the head of Sonic's Sonic team and one of the key programs behind the original Sonic games, very very well renowned figure in the industry, Nights into Dreams and everything like that. So he was the director of Balan Wonderworld, that very critically acclaimed game that came out last year with an absolute flop. So basically, he actually spoke out on Twitter this week, and just some of the stuff he was saying is just so unexpected from a Japanese, like a person, Japanese developer, basically. But it was really, really interesting. So I was mentioned Wonderworld came out last year, last March. So it came out really poor reviews, poor sales. Reports in June then indicated Yuji Naka, who directed it, had already left Square Enix by the end of April. So it came out in March, he'd already left by the end of April. And everyone's like, oh, it was unsurprising because of how badly this game went, but also just kind of such a fast exit, or you'd expect a fast exit. But what Naka was talking about this week on Twitter, so he actually sued Square Enix because he got removed as the game's director 6 months before release.
Mm.
And I don't remember hearing any news about him getting removed as director at
I
all
don't think that
about
was
this game.
published. I don't think that was
No,
publicized because everyone sort of said it. It's like he released it, you know?
exactly. So basically, and so he got released in his own words, and these are via translations. And I've actually gone. There's probably the best translation I've found. I forget where it was, but I've tried to be as accurate as I can from those
Was it from
reports.
VGC, Video Game Chronicle? They're pretty good with this stuff.
VGC, yeah, VGC, and they updated with a more accurate translation.
Yeah.
So basically, because original translations were like Google Translate and everything like that. But anyway, so on Twitter, so the actual trial has ended. I don't know what the outcome is, but basically now he's freely wanted to talk about this, and he got removed as director from the game 6 months before it released. Remember, for two reasons that he identified or that he talked about. So one was the fact that they used a YouTuber's cover of one of the game's songs for promotional materials, essentially turning the original composer into a ghostwriter. And he was fighting for, no, we need to use the original versions in this. It's essentially like discrediting the person's work. As much as I'm sure the YouTube cover was all right,
Yeah.
the point is that like he didn't want that to be represent what the game was about, and the game's people put so much work into this stuff. And the other reason was that he really clashed with the co-developer, who's was Arzest, submitting the game for release, and going through all the barriers there without fixing a lot of the key issues that he had identified. And I think clashing there and all those issues, basically they put he mentioned via a business order they released him as director for the game for 6 months, which is crazy to me. Because what I thought, well, we didn't hear about this, but I remember when they launched this, when they announced this game, it was like in a pre-show of the Game Awards or something. It was a really weird time when they released when they announced it. But so I went back and looked at the major trailers that they released to see where they stopped mentioning him as director, and it lines up so perfectly. So in the July 2020 announcement, it's like directed by Yuji Naka. The October 2020, directed by Yuji Naka, and then January and March leading up into the release, no mention of him at all. So it's kind of like that timeline works absolutely perfect there, and no one had any idea. But yeah, so it's just such a like this game was already a clusterfuck, but this whole story behind it, this is the kind of thing that we talked about Jason Schreier before and how he's written books talking about the troubled development of games. This would be a perfect game to kind of like to
For a
find out
sequel.
about, especially the fact that there was a lawsuit and some of that information would be publicly available, if not now, then later or whatever. But it's just not only is the game such a bizarre thing to happen, and obviously by all accounts I haven't played it, was a mess. Just to hear that he got removed,
Like,
and
what's even happening in the B-roll? I don't understand.
I mean it's a 3D platformer, like, but it just wasn't what people were wanting. Like, it was just really, obviously had issues, and some of the things that Naka said about it. So I pulled up some choice quotes, but basically, he's talking about Square Enix not valuing games and game fans. They blocked him from responding or liking anything on social media during that time as well. So he couldn't even like people's fan art of the game. Like, it's just kind of wild. So basically, he says he's truly sorry to the customers who bought Balan Wonderworld.
Everyone says Wonderland.
Yeah,
by the way,
I know. I even put it as our code for our little run sheet thing. But he's actually sorry to people that bought an unfinished game, and the fact that he thinks the critical reception it received had a lot to do with what happened, and he's really disappointed that a product he worked on turned out like that. So, and I would be too. Like, he's worked on some games that haven't been amazing, but he's worked on some of those classic games of all time, and you can kind of see where this whole thing's fallen apart.
Yeah, but not for a while. Like, I actually went through his the games that he's worked on in the past. It's been a long time since he's worked on a big game, like a game like of this. This is like a AA game, right?
But I normally I would agree if they were going for a modern style game. This was definitely designed to be more of a throwback in design.
Yeah.
So I think that obviously, look, this game could have still turned out to be absolute crap, but it's clear that he obviously didn't think it was in the right state to be anywhere near release. So.
Yeah, and look, like, we don't know. Like, maybe they had given him notes and overseeing the game, and they were not happy with its improvements or how it was going. Each quarter or whatever. But it is super interesting though. Like, I remember, when you pointed out the story and I started looking into it a bit more, it's pretty crazy because I feel like everyone was kind of heaping shit on him. And like, even myself, I was like, oh man, this is a terrible way to bow out, pretty much. Because that's what it felt like. It was like, this guy's never going to make a game again of this kind of scale. And then to sort of hear he was removed and then gagged. And I actually, it's a weird one. Now you kind of almost have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Because I know that, Mike, you said, oh, like, what the hell is this game? So this game, by all accounts, is a terrible game. But it's amazing, you probably, like, and you hear stories about this all the time, how a game could be horrible, and then you give it another 6 months of polish and cleaning stuff up, and it can go from, like, a really shit game to actually being a really decent game. Like, there's sometimes, very concentrated things you can do. And I think one thing about this game is it's very distinct. Like, it's very odd and it's very weird, and the characters are weird and odd, but I think that could be cool if you wrap it into a good game. So I think, like, for me, the art and the way it looks and the craziness and the zaniness, that's fine. I've never had an issue with that in this game. But given that it's a bad game, it then makes it stand out even more in a bad way. Because it's like, it looks crazy and it's really bad. So it's like, oh, geez.
And there are some people that actually don't mind the game. But obviously,
Yeah.
that's not what the majority of people out there were saying.
I think, but it's also not just the majority. It's like the vast, vast majority. Like, I think that's the same amount of people that like The Room, like, legitimately like The Room. It's like, does anyone legitimately like this game? I'm not really sure.
Bit harsh, but I
like
know
The
what you're
Room.
saying. I know what you're saying.
I don't know. I've watched
You
people...
like The Room, Mike. You legitimately like The Room.
The puzzle one. Am I thinking about a different game here?
The Room is a good puzzle game. I
To
like
be
The
fair,
Room.
it's fair that you thought of the game, The Room, in a way.
Which one
We're
am
talking
I
about the
talking?
movie, The Room.
Oh, no, I thought about the game. I quite like
Yeah.
the game. It's like an
Yeah.
escape room kind of game. That was good. Okay, right.
I don't know. I've never played it, to be fair, this game, but I have actually watched someone play it from scratch, first impressions, and I'm like, wow, this game is very odd. The choices that it's made, and it does not look good at all. Like, for instance, there's only one action you have in this game, and it's mapped to every single button. Every face button's all the same action. Like, there's just sort of very bizarre choices that are like, has anyone on the team actually played a game who's made this decision? It's just, like, very bizarre, like the conventions that it has. So, all right, cool. Let's move on to our next and final story.